Very good afternoon to all of you. It's my 2 years association with Company Secretary Institute. Before I start, let me tell you, when I joined CA, I remember I also joined CS. But I got a 40 study medal, I don't know how many of them, all related to law. And I realized, being a science graduate, I'll not be able to comprehend what is written in those 40, still lying in my library in my offices. Very sorry I'm not qualified. Company secretary course in those days. I don't find time today. But with this course, I have a very close relationship with CS Institute when I was a part of team who institute a course for Company Secretary Institute. Also, I should thank for people who are waiting after the lunch. I was told, in fact, I have seen I'm part of this along with my association with ICI when I developed course for Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. After lunchtime, it's very difficult to ask people to sit and listen anything on this topic and match. I believe and understand those who are here are interested in that. Fortunately or unfortunately in this country, this topic of valuation has been thoroughly neglected. The results are all of us to see. And in the coming days, if you refer chapter 17 of the Companies Act 2013, this is one of the most important sections before us. If you ask me about the corporate governance, I feel and understand that this one section has all element of corporate governance. All games, planning, what we call in India, basically are a process of misleading the institute and of course misleading the stakeholders. We find in coming days the kind of changes which are taking place. I will first put the real perspective before all of you, some of the situations which I am getting. Then I will try to cover up whatever time available to me on a so complex topic called valuation. As of today, if you look at the situation, especially in valuation, I was just sitting before lunch session. One topic which was discussed about the goodwill, and I suddenly realized that how so much of amount is parked in goodwill of late. Is it the Supreme Court judgment what we are referring now? I mean, it is a play of a value. Is the management, it is planning, designing the valuation in such a manner that you get a goodwill and get amortized because Supreme Court has allowed you to do so? What about the fairness of doing this processes? What about that impairment? I mean, last 1 year, sir, more than $20 billion of goodwill approximately in India, all leading companies have written off. It's shocking for me. How come in 1 year, suddenly every goodwill will go and get impaired? Which were as if they were waiting for opportunity, and you just allow this in happening. It is free for all today, but refer chapter 17. So stringent is the provision, I have never seen across the world the values put under that much of a scrutiny. Be careful if you are referring valuation reports. If you are referring any kind of a valuation report, I am saying either you are appointing or you are part of this game. The situation in the coming days will be absolutely different. I am just here to share you some of the viewpoints of retired Chief Justices of India, where I recently appeared as an expert witness in 2-3 cases in arbitration and evaluation. And the most important aspect is, if you refer the Companies Act, starting with the appointment of valuation expert is with the board, or it can be delegated to the audit committee. Some of the cases which have come across, appointments are made in public sector on L1 basis. Is it a contract? to, to do some job. And when the thing goes wrong, then the people say that, look, I am bound by CVC guidelines. It was shocking for me. How come a CVC guidelines stop you from appointing you a valuer who is qualified? A guy who has never done evaluation you are appointing because he is a L1. Who stops you from following what is called a quality and cost-based appointment? Who stops you from doing? I have never come across a CVC guidelines which stops you. Are you doing some game plan? How come a goodwill, how much is created and getting written off in so much, so quick, everybody is keeping silent? These things are an eye-opener for you. You change or the system will change. Some of the cases, the reports I have seen, it is such a pathetic state of affairs which has been done. I mean, you are playing game with the whole system, and people will literally attack you in the coming days. What are the way to safeguard the system, sir? You need to educate the one who is performing valuation. At the same time, in my understanding, the responsibility lies on the other side of the corporate, those who are appointing also. Are you doing your due diligence before appointing any valuer? One. Two, if the report comes in, can you say tomorrow that this report was prepared by a chartered accountant or a qualified company secretary valuer and therefore I wholly relied? I have not applied my mind. Is that the intent of law? You are more qualified than me. Please do tell me. I don't think so. The one who is accepting report in the audit committee as a valuer can do wrong thing. But your job is also to ensure that it is done as per the standards. Now let me give you some first-hand information about status as of today in India. As of today, we do not have any standard in India on business valuation. The only one standard available from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and that is called Corporate Affairs Standard 1. I never knew in 2008 when I started program for ICI, that also came just because I was doing program for Department of Recent Investment, Ministry of Finance, that someday this standard will become a standard for the courts to review. So sir, for your kind information, one recent case you must have heard about, the Vodafone case, which I defended. And do you know which standard I followed for defending? It was CAS 1, issued by ICI. Now the Transfer Pricing Authority, yes, it is a hard fact today, it's known to everybody that in that 2,500 transfer pricing adjustment, Vodafone has lost the case on law point, that whether it is a transfer pricing or not. It is a transfer pricing in the view of High Court, in view of the ITAT. But as far as valuation goes, they agreed with my point. So I countered the department that look, your valuation is something substandard. So it was referred back again to the department. And the standard I follow is a CAS 1. Now what is the implication of that? I have seen number of young friends who have issued report now are getting notices from Transfer Pricing Authority from Mumbai that your reports are not based on CAS 1 issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. These are the compliances which are required, you have not done, and therefore a report is not meeting the standards. This is very, very important for all of us to know that if you are doing or performing valuation in India, if it is not notified by any authority as of today, at least you are following Corporate Affairs Standard 1, or we call it as a Business Valuation Practice Standard of ICI. As far as CA Institute members are concerned, I understand the other institute members are not bound to follow. But also please try to know this point, that for the time being this standard is not mandatory for ICI member also, it is a recommendatory. That was an argument which was given by the opposing lawyer, I remember, in damages valuation in Mumbai. And the very coarse remark of retired Chief Justices of Supreme Court of India was that who stopped you to not to follow, even though it was recommendatory? Should I now presume that whatever the work we have done is a work done by following your own method and procedures? I mean, this is the state of affairs I am telling you, you need to understand that. The second element, because I have been given so much of an issue in 45 minutes, I am just trying to first cover up, is the FEMA regulation. Now, number of interaction I had in the past for last 2-3 months, wherever I have gone, people are saying, FEMA mein sab kuch free ho gaya. Now I can do anything as per my DCF. What has happened, man? Earlier it was a DCF, now DCF gone. Then what has come then? If DCF gone, then what has come? This is the interpretation of a leading lawyers of a country where I am fighting various cases across courts. It was shocking for me. You read the standards issued by the FEMA for the purpose of this. They say internationally accepted, any internationally accepted method does not mean that then it is free for all. It is now casting responsibility of the valuer to decide about the method, approaches which you want to follow for the purpose of valuation. And tomorrow you cannot go and say that, look, you said to follow a DCF. I knew that DCF is not good for this case, but you forced me to follow and I followed it. So please appreciate this point. Discounted cash flow method is even today is as valid as it was valid in those days, and it was established in 2003 by Supreme Court ruling in Renuka Datla case. The judgment of Supreme Court as of today in this country. That was the birth of discounted cash flow method. I have not come across any ruling thereafter which says that now I am withdrawing this judgment. This is still prevailing. 2. Remember this point, we have this in presentation. There are only 3 approaches available. The income approach, the market approach and the asset approach. Now, the recent ruling in Delaware Supreme Court in United States of America has used the very fancy word that the valuer role is to do a triangulation. They use the word the triangulation of the value. That means if you refer the standard and read these judgments, in all cases of valuation, all 3 approaches of valuation need to be considered. For any reason, one particular approach cannot be adopted. You need to justify, give a valid reason. It is not your personal whims. Reason, there is nothing called the method or the approach of evaluation. If you do anything wrong by following one particular approach, the other approach is there to counterbalance that. So even though valuers are not able to use this particular thing, they need to first validate based on prevailing market information. And if you are not doing, you are failing your duty. I'm just highlighting some of the legal angle involved, what I have learned in the last 2-3 years, because before that, I just said that 40 laws of company security was basically what was a problem for me, an obstacle to pursue the courses like this. But after entering into this valuation, you won't believe it, 60% of my professional time now is put into the valuation. And that goes into the case laws. Because without understanding the intention and also the interpretation of courts across the globe, you will not be able to understand how it is going to take place. Mergers and acquisitions are so important topic. Sitting here in India, you as a valuer has the opportunity to provide tremendous amount of services in the US. And do you know the charge of valuation fee for the US? $20,000 per assignment is the lowest level of fee which is available in the United States of America. Now take a small example. I mean, this is the kind of money which is flowing there. Sitting here in India, you can help the law houses there. Sitting in India, you can help the cases which is going in the United States of America. If you are doing a mergers acquisition in outside India or also in India, people generally forget that I am only doing transactional valuation and then the tax angle you look for. Later on you look for accounting angle. But there are so many angles which comes later on when you do not find the guy who done the first one. And I am referring to the transfer pricing regulations. Make sure that the valuation when you do it, and if it gets at your transfer pricing angles gets attracted, that issue is addressed at the first day itself. Because later on you will be getting some assessment orders. Some of the cases like Amazon has got $2 billion adjustment for transfer pricing, right? Because it involves a transfer of one asset from one tax zone to the another one. The transactional valuer did the valuation, went away. auditor has done the job, the tax guy has done the job, but the next thing which has come up, no answer for this. I'm handling one of the cases in United States of America. My Indian clients, $45 million adjustment. Do you know the fee the American valuer and the lawyers charge? It can be varying from 15% to 20% of the whole settlement. They only take retainer fee and then the case fights. 2 years, 3 years down the line, they get the judgment. One case, your adjustment done or not done, that guy is adjusted fully for your whole life. That is the money they make. And that is how the opportunity lies before this country. I am saying, if you can perform on that level, I am sure all of us can perform. We have the capability to address those cases because I am interacting with them. US is a specialist country, but we also require sometimes a generalistic knowledge, isn't it? Within this specialization, some basic understanding of various things are very important. And Indians are masters in this. We all have, I have experience with 2 batches which you did in Company Secretary Institute. Believe me, that was my first day. Vineet called me my office and I just forget the name of the gentleman who come from whatever stage of your institute. That's why we are starting a valuation course. Would you help us? Initial, my reaction was frankly speaking, I said you are wasting your time because when I do it for chartered accountant, I find them in a very bad sense. Why we are forcing CS to go and do something on valuation area? Let them enjoy what they are doing. But I was thoroughly proven wrong when I interacted with the members. In fact, I realized that one segment of the valuation can be easily taken over and therefore a more qualified lawyer can come up in this country as a valuation specialist lawyer who would understand the implication of valuation. Forget about the calculation part of that. Somebody else will do a calculation. For last 2 years, sir, one new area has opened and I think you are more qualified than what I am qualified, is the expert witnessing. I am recommending from this institute platform that Company Secretary Institute should look for this. You prepare a young member for expert witnessing. It is a highly paid job and thoroughly captured by lawyers who do not understand anything on the valuation. The problem for me is that I am not naming a top class Supreme Court lawyer. Whole night I will be teaching various principles of valuation. Sonia will be laughing. Free cash flow. In the morning he will tell me that, sir, what is brilliance of this free cash flow? He cannot go and then argue the case the way I want him to argue the case. And what will be the implication of I who is sitting on the other side of the bench? He will not understand. Cases, they are getting dragged. You will help me. Most of you are now working. I have seen you more than CA in various company law board. In fact, a lot of company secretary, I have given them one thing. They can always come to my office. I never charge anybody who comes to my office for free advice. I have seen a company law board. Can you believe that? If I am wrong, please do counter me. Nobody is cross-examined. And cases are for monetary oppression, this and that. It is all relating to the valuation issue, sir. Why can't a valuer be cross-examined? He should not be allowed to go free. He cannot say that this is my opinion. There is nothing called valuation is my opinion. It should all be based on well-accepted principles. So if it is done in damages cases, if it is done in arbitration cases, why can't it be done in a company law board? It is not being done. And result, the cases are getting dragged and minority shareholders are all, one case, sir, I've seen a client which is me, he's been bossed off. For last 4 years, 4 valuers have been appointed. Each one has their own style of doing. And what is the result? I asked them with the lawyer, senior lawyer who is representing that client, that what will be the result, sir? He said, the result will only come if 2 parties will agree. I said, is that the valuation? Is it the role of assessment? 2 parties will never agree. Which means you are doing some sort of a settlement there. It is not a fair process. It is a thoroughly unfair process which you are following. And how it comes in, if we don't, so in this time frame, I will try to give you some perspectives. As he said, opportunities are there. You can see some of the issues I will be trying to handle, which probably drive people more than anything else. It is one thing you will be very interested in knowing
that whenever I go for any training program and any kind of education, people ask me that why people go for M&A if it destroys value rather than create value. KPMG has done a research. I don't know if it is a research or research, but whatever. Last 10 years they say 75% cases of Indian M&A, they have not created value, rather they have destroyed value. Now sir, you tell me, who is this for responsible for? Then you pin down the valuer, the poor guy. He was in a mess because how the valuation happens in India. I am surprised. The owner says that, I know the value. So where is the question of appointing valuer? Why should you appoint value? He said that in my opinion, the price of this asset is this. If you can bring based on your calculation, the figure which I am giving you, thank you very much. A tax guy will say, I need $5 billion goodwill. Can you do it? Some of the cases I throws my hat, I said I could not. Some of the guys, I have not named them, in whole line they created document, next they said, yeah, I can. And client told me that you keep on leaving the job, these guys will keep on accepting the job. So you are not a person who understands profession. I said, thank you very much. I'm just waiting one day, if he comes in court, then I'll show them the true path. I will show them the path which Buddha has followed. Got no point. You just have to wait. And the things are getting cleaned up every day in the market. The courts are now becoming very, very cautious. Believe me, sir, with all those learnings which I have taken for last 2 years and appearing in Mumbai arbitration cases, at least 3 judges are fully aware about the valuation issues. Because they have listened me more than 90 hours, not 1 or 2 hours. And now they are recommending other judges, those textbooks I refer them, that Abi Parosi. So some knowledge, some sense probably will prevail in coming day. Situation will not what was happening in the past. I think it is our onerous responsibility to take up this matter in a proper way. When I am saying, when I am looking for valuation, what type of valuation will take place? When you talk about merger, you only talk about valuation for transaction. But valuation per transaction is one angle. Immediately followed up after that would be a valuation for accounting. Now valuation for accounting, the new Sanjay ji has already come. So when he will come, I think he will deliberate more onto this. He is an authority on this. IFRS 3, purchase price accounting. This standard would be the critical in the coming days in India. So far we are following AS14. Believe me, maximum number of cases in United States of America, one of the most leading center for valuation principles and knowledge and etc. Maximum cases are going under PPA, purchase price accounting. Reason, because there is what all valuation principles comes in force. So one has to be careful. For that, you have a separate standard, and you can note down that the standard is IFRS 13. This standard talks about the whole valuation principles which you are supposed to follow if you go and apply IFRS 13. One accounting standard can give you an opportunity for next 3, 4, 5 years. You will hardly find in India a guy who can do what is expected to do at that level. When I see some cases which I am representing as of today in United States of America, a parallel to what we have in India, Section 92 for transfer pricing, they have Section 482. It is a trading section. And it's shocking for me, in US also there is a lot of confusion into this, that what is the arm's length price? And therefore the interpretation is just following here and there. But all arising from the mergers, acquisitions, transactional valuation. So 3 valuations you have to take care of. 1, the transaction. 2, immediately you go for accounting, would be IFRS 3. Or a parallel to that across the globe. In India, you just keep on adding 100. So if it is IFRS 3, it will be, then of course you add 100. So accordingly you will get, if it is 13, then it will be 113 in days. You will find that those standards will be the future for adopting that. What would be your role? Apart from that damages valuation, apart from that legal course, I think you will be taking care of the poor minority guys getting suffered at various levels where people are not aware of the valuation principles, is the one that you can go and take the matter of corporate governance. And in my opinion, the maximum issue of corporate governance is linked with the valuation. Because in the New Companies Act, hardly there is an action which will have a ramification across the company has not got a requirement for a valuation. And most of the time in India I have seen that requirement for valuation gets triggered from the corporate office at the last probably day of a requirement when you require a compliance. And then they will say that, sir, can you do a valuation for me? I said yes. When you are expecting the report to be delivered, they said that if you would have delivered by yesterday evening, you would have been much better. I mean, if this is the way you are doing the valuation, probably the situation will be very, very difficult for you. Cases are opened, sir. One of the cases which has come to my desk through company secretary, I am here to take this case. This is a case of 2005 merger, sir. 2005 merger of a listed company with a unlisted where the promoters are involved. You know better, that is a time card now. That guy had tried everything here and there. Do you know what is the now recourse? A Supreme Court lawyer has advised criminal cases. There is no time bar for that. I have to decide should I go and help, because I'll have to find out time from my life that should I get involved in those criminal cases. But then this is the alternative available. And do you know who are the guy who was getting targeted into this? First the valuer, then the SEBI, then all guys involved, auditor, everybody. The shareholder is saying that look, I have been cheated. My value for X rupees just because of this merger has been destroyed in no time, and therefore I tried my best in the old days. Okay, I got time bar, but I have another provision. I'll call them all in the criminal provisions. In the New Companies Act, even a one shareholder can now ask for the full valuation report, and you can take a class action. It is not a small job. It goes into the court. You cannot, I have seen in the old, you can see the Supreme Courts have barred a lot of cases, only happens in India, that if it is a valuation report for a merger, then lot of things are very, very secret, and therefore it cannot be given, only few pages of the reports are given. Now you can ask for the full report under the New Companies Act. And if the reports comes in, and if something wrong gone, probably the other guys look in the market, there will be cases for you. Not one or two, it could be 1,000. Because that is what is happening in US, and people are getting trained, coming back to this, applying the same principle. So who will take up these cases, sir? Are we going to allow them, the lawyers, to do this? It's very difficult to train them because they are in a totally different mood. They don't want to understand anything on the principle basis. They only want to a law, and there is hardly law in Indian valuation, believe me. It's yet developing. So we only have to fall back the interest of methodology. So now I'm coming back to you is something in the given time frame, because I don't know how much time. 20. Anyway, this is the issue I want to discuss with you, is the valuation humanity. What makes one valuation report is more plausible and the other ones are completely unbelievable. Sometimes people say, ask me a question, they said DCF projections are mine, I can do anything on the projection, the results will come as per my own desire. A company which has no going concern, for the purpose of valuation is understood to be having a going concern. And therefore there is a value. Because the management wants 10 rupees means 10 rupees. You want to convert your equity into 10. You want a 10 rupees of value. And therefore the valuer goes and fulfill the research. I'm sorry to say, people believe that this is another certificate, like any other certificate we issue, whether it is CA or CS. It is happening in the courts. I'm just highlighting a situation. You should not fall prey to those kind of situations. What we technically call those valuer as a malleable value. A guy who get sucked in, the guy who get suppressed because the management wants X and Y. Management also forget this point, that when it comes for defending the report, Management cannot defend the report. It is the valuer who is going to defend the report. And what if the valuer tomorrow throws hands and say that, look, I was pressurized by management, then who will be caught under 447 section of the Companies Act? Whether you followed the proper appointment procedure, whether you have followed all due diligence, whether you accepted the report, after discussing, you write in your board meetings, you write in your all secretariat note that report was thoroughly discussed, and thereafter you say that I have just left at the wisdom of the profession who prepared the report. I don't think it is acceptable, and therefore there is a problem. You see, in the last 2 years, 30% cases in US have gone against auditors. 60% cases have gone against valuer, and they are all dragged in the court. And I am expecting same thing happening in India because things are changing. You have a big role to play there. So think about that. A specialized valuation leader, a specialized business valuation expert witness who can understand little bit on computation part and at the same time can also argue and help the various courts, judges to decide the cases. And therefore there are opportunities available before us. Now, this is another important aspect. Little bit time I have left, 20 minutes more because Sanjay ji has to take a deliberation on accounting part. Yeah.
May I now request we have Mr. Sanjay Vasudeva, our next speaker for the accounting aspects of merger and amalgamation.
These two things you please look for in mergers and acquisition valuation. In fact, in any valuation, it is a very important thing to know what is the definition of value. And we call it as standard value. So I am addressing this issue because I have never seen in any reports, most of them in India which comes in, is address this issue. You will be tested for this in court. When you go into the court, believe me, you have to give an affidavit. What are the things you rely? One, you cannot go back on what you give an affidavit. And that's a big problem for you can say anything here. One of the cases in Mumbai I found, one of the valuers said in his affidavit that I have got 30 years of experience. I generally, frankly speaking, whenever my lawyers are hellbound on attacking on the personal credibility of an individual, I advise them to go against, but they love it doing so because there is what they are expert. I generally believe to go for a technical part. But he said, no, let me attack here. I said, how do you know that? He said that, let me ask, what is the 30 years of experience is all about? So he asked him the question, that in 30 years, how many valuation you carried out? He said 3. So then, do you know what was the reaction of the judge? Then that which were trying to mislead. I mean, this experience was asked for the valuation, isn't it? And you were saying that 30 years, but only 3 assignments, and that you did last 5 or 6 years, 10 years down the line. So therefore, you are unfit. This gives you a very, very wrong positioning in court. Opening, it's like a cricket match. If few balls comes in and then everybody watching on you, and you go wrong onto this part. I think this is a serious attack on credibility. The next part was a very critical question. The one which you valued, the figure which you derived, what name should be given? Should it be a fair market value? Should it be a fair value? Should it be an intrinsic value? Should it be an investment value? Now please, I am not discussing here the technical meaning of all these terms, but each one has got a different meaning. In each situation the result will change. The valuer said, sir, I only have calculation value, which I cannot define. Can you believe that? He said that I cannot define it because this is how I have read in textbooks that this is how present value is calculated. He said that, do you know the reaction of the judge? They said that I am not looking for somebody who can calculate. I am looking for somebody who is expert, who can explain me. Are you here to explain us? That was the reaction of judges. Or you expect us to explain. You can imagine it is just so much of embarrassment. As far as the lawyer said after this grilling session was over, he said, we are paying or you are enjoying. I said, I have never enjoyed. It is you who appointed your valuer, and my job is to take the course of my opinion. You have taken a guy who could not define what is the meaning of this. What is the meaning of this? So you can note down, even though you don't know. And if you want to know, come to the Company Secretary Institute valuation course. Vineet told me he's going to start again. So I'm not giving any kind of advertisement, but this is all in your merit. Whether you love finance or not, believe me, from any discipline, whatever may be your background, you come and join this valuation course, you will enjoy it. Because that is how it's all about. In my offices, we have hired people from IIMS. Earlier I was not helping IIMS at all. Now from 16 students are coming. Do you know the background of few of them? One guy is a MBBS. Yes.
Doing valuation.
Will you guide us how to value the on merger acquisition?
Yes.
Please do that.
This is what I am guiding. The first important principle is that what should be the value definition for mergers and acquisition.
That's what we want the guidance from.
So the first guidance is it should be fair market value.
How to calculate that?
Now I'm coming back to this. If it is a fair market, because unless you understand the definitional part,
Right.
you will not be able to understand the calculation part, because it flows from that, right? So if it is a fair market value, as far as valuation goes, you have to be careful that the fair market value believes or has an understanding is for the definitional part, which we will discuss later on, is to focus on any hypothetical buyer seller in the market. It's not considering any specific buyer or any specific
Right.
investor. As a result of that, the synergy part will never come into valuation. While I am deciding a swap ratio, the synergy part will never come into the picture as far as the valuation of mergers equation goes. But if I go for a merger equation valuation for fair value accounting, the whole game changes, and then the valuation is done with respect to buyer only. If it is an arm's length price, then all specific benefit available to a buyer will be counted for the purpose of valuation. Now let's see how tricky the situation is. One M&A, three angle. One angle is for transactional, which you got the valuation done, fair market value. The second angle is the income tax department valuation. If it is a transfer pricing case under section IT2, arm's length price. The meaning changes. Now you are counting all the specific benefit available to a buyer, which means suppose a guy who is sitting in India, if it is transferring asset to a Mauritius, getting 3% tax rate as compared to 34% tax rate in India, do you think that it need to be counted for the purpose of valuation? The answer is yes. A specific benefit available to a buyer goes in for income tax because this is a case of jurisdictional changes and therefore the transfer pricing goes on. I am saying the complication is there for a broader picture and therefore all need to be addressed on the first day. If you have a three separate valuer, each one will do different and then you need a teaching law, which will be very difficult for you to defend. So the definitional part are very critical, which we need to consider. The second one I have answered here. Fair market value on a standalone basis. So please try to understand the meaning of standalone. Standalone, when I am saying, I am not counting any benefit which is coming from the buyer, which effectively means what is the existing management, what is the existing capital structure, what is the existing management projection are the one which you need to consider. Anything else, if it is captured in the projection, your valuation goes wrong. Now, this part is something we need to be very careful. The one which I have highlighted. Maximum transactional part which is happening in market, if you ask anybody who's into the merger and acquisition, 2-3 kind of situation will happen. One, I have seen some of the cases, there is a guy who has got a large number of transactions done on mergers and they believe they are the expert one. The guy who has just got first or second, maybe because most of the company will have 1 or 2 going on, they have a problem here in this company. They use what is called EBIT multiple or EBITDA multiple for the purpose of valuation. And the transaction is done. But what is the economic angle involved into this? If you have not done a thorough valuation at the time of acquiring the company, the end result would be that your whole valuation later on will be questioned. Because most of the time it is very fancy to use this multiple. One example I'll give you, if you can take this as this for using EBITDA multiple. I was doing recently for a guy who was in a dentist business. He used a EBITDA multiple for the purpose of acquiring company. without realizing that this does not consider the cash flow at all. First, EBITDA will never tell you how good is your earning capacity, how is the company ability to convert those earnings into the cash, because EBITDA level, you are not counting the impact of changes on working capital, and that 10 crores rupees acquisition is got lost in no time because the valuation was done at up level without considering the full cash flow. Yes.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
You are presenting the question.
Yeah.
We shall be very thankful. We are company secretary. If you can answer a simple question,
Yeah.
how to evaluate my unlisted company, which I want to merge in a listed company. Instead of these questions, if you answer and guide us, that will be better, I think.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
If you want that answer,
Yeah.
then
How to value an unlisted company for merger in a listed company?
this
Questions we have lots.
is the steps you need to follow.
Yes. Please guide that.
Will you be sharing the presentation?
Sorry,
Will you be sharing the presentation with us?
if you wish, I can say. I have no issue.
Maybe I think that will be better for the audience.
Yes.
Yeah. The first step
Please.
is
It will be
Help
placed
us
on the
out.
website.
this.
Okay.
This presentation covers. I think I have specifically designed for company secretary. What you are asking about the method, I just start with this. These two important aspects. Probably, if it is not properly addressed, will go wrong in the whole valuation process. First one is the data valuation and the date on which the valuer signs the report. See, I have given A and B. The first, you can see my presentation, we call it as a current valuation. In that, A and B are close to each other, right? Always you will find that your A is before B. That means the valuer will be signing report just closer. Maybe this time frame generate press release 3 months time. Very normal valuation. But what about this? Which I have heard here 3 years, 5 years back you have appointed a. This goes under what we call as a retrospective valuation. Now implication is very serious. How? Your B is sitting here and the data valuation is there at A. It could be 3 years down the line, it could be 4 years down the line. Now sir, principal comes in here into the picture. At A, you are doing valuation. At B, you are signing the report. So whatever the events which has taken place, whatever the implication has taken place after A, will not be considered at all for the purpose of valuation.
Sir, I have a point in this.
Yes,
Because I am doing it today at
Right.
B point.
Right.
But I am always saying it is with respect to the appointed date, which is A.
Yeah.
So it is the valuation as on A.
yes.
So there is no issue. What is the issue?
Issue is that if you do an income approach, right, by the time B, there will be a annual reports.
I have considered all those things.
It will not, I'm coming back to
What
that.
approach we should.
You are not supposed to consider those things. The actual reports will not be accepted at all. Because as on A, what is the information known or knowable as on date of A would only be considered.
Sir, my simple question is,
Yeah.
whatever I am doing with a very, knowledge, very clear knowledge that what I am doing. When I am doing with a clear knowledge, I am doing what is required. I have already considered what is to be considered. I have not considered which is not to be considered. So the point of the question or the points which you are raising, I think these are not giving us a very clear picture. Just understand that if we are doing it with this reverse valuation, then what should be the approach? If we are doing it with retrospective, what should be the approach?
I also
That's
add
the
in this
answer.
point. I also add in this point. Whenever I am doing the valuation, I am doing it at a particular date.
Right.
But the law says you can take the figures of the audited balance sheet latest available.
Yeah.
If I am doing the valuation in today's February 2015, I will always take the figure as of the base of the valuation balance sheet available 31st March 2014.
Incorrect.
So,
Valuation is always as of a date, right? So there is a definition of valuation,
Yeah.
right? So if it is, date is fixed. So I'm just explaining him because he has a question that I'm not able to comprehend what you're saying. My question is that when you follow income approach, under which the DCF comes in, right?
I may, one of the consideration is DCF.
Right.
It's not the only consideration.
No, I'm coming back
So
to
I
that
have-
because there are other
points
methods.
of view.
There are other methods because this point.
I tell you the valuation is done with respect to clients, with respect to the bargaining powers, with respect to many things. It's not the only thing that I give a value and it's final. It's not like that. But let us be practical, because we are here to add value, what we know and what we have to do.
Correct. What I am trying to say that when this kind of situation comes up before us, there is a tendency by management, right, to provide the actual, because technically we call it the benefits of hindsight. The management would always give you the actual information available for dates available after the date of appointed date or valuation, because they say it's audited one. But the valuation principles require that it should not be considered, and to avoid the benefit of hindsight is very difficult for a valuer. That is the point I am making.
That is the point we are here. Because we want to add value to what we know.
That's what I'm
We have to
saying.
match between what the management wants and what we can really
That's what
face before the authorities in case it's challenged. But normally these are not challenged. Still we have to be realistic, we have to be professional in our approach. That's the issue. So give us that, minor points which we should consider.
I am just saying, in this case, what we are seeing situation, if it is the issue comes in, if anybody covers the actual figure after A, which is happening there, then it will be difficult for you to defend in the courts. That is what I am addressing this point. Why I am addressing? Because this has happened and it has come up in number of cases which I am addressing. So I am highlighting people that please get out of this trap, because there is a tendency to do so and therefore avoid it. That was the first point.
In case of Sahara, valuation was for the land. Some valuer was there.
Right.
He said that after 20 years,
Yeah.
this land will cost, say, it was 20,000 today, it will cost 4 lakh rupees. Then he discounted cash flow. But of course, Supreme Court did not
No,
agree.
you are right. In case of Sahara, there was another big problem which I recently addressed in Mumbai, because that land is not used for the commercial use. So if you follow the valuation principle, that is called as a highest and best use principle, that technically HABU, a parcel of land or asset which is not used for the purpose of commercial use can have no value principle. You cannot create a situation. You cannot create a situation that this land some point in time, because there is a scarcity of a land, so it will become something valuable tomorrow.
But value must be registered value.
Doesn't make difference, sir. In today's world, you are registered, I am registered. How does it make difference? If you go into the court, you will be examined on the basis of principle. I am only discussing the principle. Now come back. These are the approaches which you are looking for. These are the three things we need to understand. I just given a scope of, sir. See, this is the valuation standard. First is what you need to follow. Standards will give you the overall guidance. Then the best practices which I was referring to you, based on all authoritative document. And the last one is the approaches, methods and the techniques. If I go back to see this my one slide, it will give you the clear picture. We have got three approaches. One is the income approach which I was discussing, another is the market approach, another is the asset based approach, right? How do we start a valuation for an unlisted company you referred? This is how we go. You define the assignment starting with what you need to value first, right? The second one is to understand the ownership characteristics. The valuation date is another important critical part which I just highlighted how important it is. The purpose of valuation is very important. The purpose could be fair value for accounting purpose, which you have just seen. The whole definition of value will change. The term fair value is defined under the new standard IFRS 13, right? So your process of method and process, data collection, the exercise of carrying out valuation, everything will change based on this standard. If it is for transactional, it could be fair market value as I identified. Because who gets out of this? Suppose a private equity investor has a specific information available about a company. That buyer is not in the list of fair market value. Because fair market value is looking only for a hypothetical buyer situation and a hypothetical seller situation where no party is under compulsion to buy and sell. That is how the valuation is carried out. The next one is the definition of value, which I was talking about. Will it be fair market value? Will it be arm's length price? Will it be intrinsic value? Will it be the investment value? What is the definition of value? Need to be decided based on the purpose of value. If it is a Section 92 valuation under the Income Tax Act, it has to be the arm's length price. If it is for Section 56 valuation of the Income Tax Act, it has to be fair market value.
Now what is the practice in India? Whether for 92 section or for 56 section, all process of valuation is same. Results come the same. That is the problem. That is what I am trying to identify. Even the income tax authority, one of the notices I have seen in transfer pricing, say that you do a valuation or carry out valuation for section 92 as per the method prescribed in section 56. 56 prescribed method for fair market value. Arm's length has a big ramification. It is a whole day. We will be able to understand one term called arm's length price. Then only the method will come. Method is only going to give you the way you calculate. But the principles are something very important. Then information collection stage. I think one important aspect for experts I would definitely highlight, which sir you were referring about RRTs. Limiting condition in the valuation is the most important one I hardly find in India in a valuation report. Limiting condition is like a audit qualification. A valuer has to give a proper limiting condition, but limiting condition cannot be like that. The management has given information, I have accepted it. This cannot be a limiting condition. Then you are limiting yourself with this very important review, and that is called a calculation engagement. Are we clear that there are two sort of engagement? One is called calculation engagement, another is called valuation engagement. So which one we are doing? In a valuation engagement, you express opinion. In a calculation engagement, you only calculate the figures, and that is allowed under the standard. But most of the time, under the name of a valuation engagement, we are doing only this calculation because the management gives projection, you follow the management methodology, everything you do. You have not done anything on your part. And these are the some processes which you are supposed to follow as per standard. Use your independent mind. One, use independent analysis to prove that this management proposition is validated by me. And these are the some differences. These aspects, if it is not carried out, then it is all management then what is the purpose of valuation? So this is all technical point I am saying. If these things are missing, I'm not sure this should be called valuation or not. Then the last point comes in your, I think you want to make this. Okay, fine. So let me see. The site visit and entrance conference, these are all designed based on requirement. If a valuer has carried out the assignment without this, I think his reports will not be fairly acceptable. Go for economic scan, then the companies and operational historical analysis. This is very important for especially damages valuation. If you have not considered the historical performances of a company, simply ignore and try to factor something which you feel that could be that, probably it will be too much of an optimistic. Electric meters. And how smart is that? Sitting here, I can check your house, how much is going in your favor, how much goes going against you. Isn't it? Do you think that there is a business for this in India?
Probably, maybe.
40 crore rupees have been invested, 30 people from IT is working in this project. But the biggest problem with this business is, which I identified it, you require a BIS standard bond and you require approval of a state electricity board and various electricity boards where you want to sell. If these two things are done, then this has got a tremendous amount of opportunity because the next 5 years is a business available for all past sector.
So now in this real option method, basically,
yeah,
you calculate the cash flows, factoring in all
the
possible.
Real option method does a traditional method of calculation of cash flow, but then it builds in data based on historical technological development of past across the globe.
No, but it's an invention. There is no history behind it.
No, there are various inventions which has happened in past. So there are the revenues curves available, how it evolved, if at all the technological thing happened. It is not that you are doing an invention first time.
No, it's an invention which has no parallel or no precedent.
That's
what I'm
basically mentioning. Economic sense wise, you could see, suppose you are in a pharmaceutical business. You come out with a new molecule development, right? It's a new drug. You only have to see what is the use of this drug, what is the overall market available, how long it takes for you to go, how much you will be able to capitalize out of this. Also your resources and capability on the marketing front, all those aspects are evaluated and then it is captured through the valuation. But this is one of the methods I will say. There are other methods also which are taken to the space, right?
In case of this new company, you said that for FEMA purpose, this net asset value will be...
Oh, I'm very sorry. Net asset is one of the methods under the asset.
Net asset does not mean that you only, and this is very wrong, people understand. Net asset only consider assets and liabilities appearing on financial statement. But you would agree with me, there are hell amount of assets which are not appearing in the balance sheet even for the new company today. What if you have got a license, a special license which requires a value? So I am talking about intangible. So what I said about is the cost of replacement new, which is a more appropriate method than the net asset method. I have seen in India, some of the listed companies I have seen this, I am going to challenge them because they have used what is called as a net asset method. Net asset method only capturing assets and liability appearing in financial statement. Do you agree that this is the value of a company for a listed company? In today's world, who is the company which has got only tangible asset and no intangible asset? If at all you don't have intangible asset, the customer list, the website name, the customer contracts, do you know that these are all intangibles? All recognized? So therefore, it is a huge business as per as valuation, and we are not counting following net asset method. Net asset method, in my opinion, is something very, very dangerous to use because you will be challenged in the court. You may be following in the past. Past cannot be in history to replicate in future.
And how do you do it in case of a new company?
I said one example, if my business is not so visible, I'm just a startup, follow asset approach, a method called cost of replacement new. This method says that what if I require to invest today, create this asset today, how much I need to cost, add to this is a true entrepreneur profit up to this level, and that becomes a reasonable figure reflecting our value.
No, but newly incorporated company may not be having any assets at all.
I'm saying that if you don't have anything, then what is this company is there? Then there's only a book value. I mean, for what you created the company?
For FEMA purpose.
I'm coming to the FEMA. See, believe me, FEMA has only said follow international standards. I'm only referring to the requirements of international standards. So asset approach is one of the widely used method for startup companies, for loss-making companies, for a company who does not have a future, etc. Right, sir?
Sir, this is a new valuation methodology under FEMA. Can you explain this?
I have got a big presentation into this because see, these are the things you require. A lot of disclosure part. I've come on with lot. With the time frame is something. I've just here. This is the only thing we have to take care of as far as unlisted part. You have to be careful. Not the listed part, sir. See this revised guideline. What is it? You follow fair valuation. I think the wrongly worded, but anyway, the sense is clear. Be careful between two words, fair value and fair valuation. Am I right? Are they same or they are different? Fair value is a definition of value, and fair valuation is a process which you are always supposed to follow in all methodology of valuation. So they are saying it is internationally accepted pricing methodology. There is nothing called internationally accepted pricing methodology. What is internationally available is the internationally accepted business valuation standards. And all standards says that in all valuation you need to consider, I repeat the word consider, all three approaches. And for any reason, if you are not able to consider, you are mentioning this point about the new company, you give a reason that discounted cash flow method cannot be used because we do not have a precedent of doing so. Now tell me a real estate company which has not been able to sell a single flat, would you like to use a discounted cash flow method for that? You cannot, because there is no available. You cannot say that the other guy has sold flat for this reason. Your project would be unique because each real estate project is totally unique. And if you are using other person guidelines, then you are following the market approach under the name of income approach. So you are deviating from your principle. Am I right? Is there any question?